RV-4 is something I've come to expect from Hangar 9. Though I did come across some issues in the building of this kit, they're nothing that's going to really affect how the plane flies. The interior of the RV-4 fuselage is large, but like most times, it fills up pretty quickly. The main wing panels mount into some cavities built into the fuselage that gives them a nice finished look. The downside to this wing mounting is where the wing bolt winds up. The wing bolts are inserted through the side of the fuselage near the bottom, below the control cables and push rods. I found the easiest way is to turn the rudder servo one way all the way. That gives me just enough room to snake my hand down there and screw the bolts in. The best news about this is that there's only 2 of those bolts. The tail feathers all have an airfoil shape. The horizontal stabilizers are bolted in, so you can be removed for transport if necessary. The first issue we discovered was with the rudder servo, specifically the rudder servo with the 3-inch arm that the instructions call for. The instructions call for the output shaft of the rudder servo to be facing forward like the elevator servos, but that just isn't going to happen. Even with the rudder servo reversed, there's still a conflict between the 3-inch arm and the smaller arms on the elevator servos. This actually clears, but I doubt you can get a folded piece of paper in between this and the elevator output arm. To give us a little bit of breathing room, I've ground the outside edge of the rudder servo output arms. We actually removed very little material, but it does give us plenty of room so we don't worry about this binding up in flight. Another issue with the rudder is that we need the cables mounted at the same width at the rudder as they are on the servo arm. The pre-drilled holes in the rudder control arms are too wide, so I had to add some new holes of my own. Drilling the new holes is no big deal and fixes the problem. I always use these Dubro ball links at the ends of my pull-pull cables. I just like these way better than the clevis. The alignment of the servo arms and the tubes that carry the push rods and cables is pretty close. It could be a little bit better, but this hasn't seemed to affect anything in flight. I use the included tailwheel assembly because it doesn't have springs. The instructions are way wrong on the placement of that aluminum plate on the rudder itself, but it's easy enough to figure out. Here's a little surprise that can happen if you get carried away with rudder throw. I use a bunch of rudder, but I've never had this happen on the field, just in the pits. Most people don't use that much rudder anyway. I mounted a Valley View RV-40 twin classic engine on this plane and found out that they didn't list a prop washer to firewall distance. I saw a few things on forums where at 7 inches seemed to be about right for this, and with the standoffs included in the kit, the engine came out perfect. This turns out to be more important than you might think because this cowl is a tight fit to the fuselage. The Valley View 40 twin classic fits inside the cowl very well, and that makes cutting the cowl a lot easier. I did open the front ports as much as I could just to be sure I had plenty of air flowing through the cowl. The aileron servo mounts and linkages are very straightforward and easy to use. And by the way, Hangar 9 includes the linkage rods all made up already. For some reason, Hangar 9 decided to use hidden linkage for the flaps. That makes setting up the linkage a pain in the butt. I think they should have used the same linkage as they did on the ailerons and everything would be fine. This isn't a scale airplane. Landing lights are built into the wings, but they don't tell you anything about how to set this up other than to use the appropriate battery and switch. A friend of FlyingRC.net suggested using an engine kill switch and mix that into the flaps. That mix means that the lights only come on when the flaps are deployed, and that makes sense. The RV-4 comes with a painted scale pilot, along with some interior pieces that give it a standoff scale look. The last thing I do before going through all the setup to set the throws in it is to do the balancing. You very often have to move the batteries or something to get the CG right, so I would do that now. I set the CG in the middle of the recommended range, and we'll start from there. Then after we get it trimmed out and flying normally, we can move the CG as I feel necessary.